Hello, and thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be discussing the articles that we read for Module 2, and I'm going to answer the questions that were prompted. The first question is, what do I think of the articles? I am disappointed but not surprised in the findings that were presented in these articles. I think that it is unfortunately unnecessary, that we need to be very critical of the articles that we read, and even if they're published in respected journals. And unfortunately, there are a lot of outside influences that can affect findings in research. The first article that we read was The Mind of a Con Man, which talked about a professor that completely made up his own data in order to meet the hypotheses that he presented. And then the second two articles talked about a professor that works for Cornell University and specifically in the food and science lab that tried to find data where there wasn't and having conclusions in data that was considered that it didn't find anything. So it was trying to make conclusions where there wasn't. What does this make me think about? It really does make me think about the importance of peer review and being critical of the articles that we're reading. Especially in this research class, we need to be aware that even if this is presented in a non-biased way, that even the researchers have a bias, either if it's conscious or unconscious, that we need to be aware of. And it's also very important that we are aware of. It's also important that we need to be critical of what we're reading and that we need to kind of back it up, seeing if there's any kind of other research in this area, if it kind of confirms it. Also looking at the replicability of these research studies. How does this make me view research? It makes me disappointed. It, again, reinforces that idea that we need to be critical of the information that we're reading. We need to look at more than just the abstract and the conclusions. We really do need to look into the methods of how they're conducting it, look at the statistics and seeing if they are valid, and also seeing if the conclusions that these articles are presenting are too good to be true. And then how does this change my perspective on my own work? I will definitely admit that in previous research and in previous papers that I've written, I have kind of glazed over how the methodology works and just kind of looking for the conclusions or something easy that I can throw in to make a point. And this does make me kind of take a step back and make sure that I am being critical of the data that I'm looking at, and also making sure that I am getting my information from credible sources, that they're peer reviewed, that it's really backed up, to make sure that I'm presenting data that is accurate. To answer the other questions, the research problem that I decided to choose is figuring out barriers to participants that are trying to get client preferred food assistance through food pantries, specifically in the state of Arkansas. And I wanted to go a step further and kind of see at the barrier of transportation when it comes to the accessibility of client preferred food pantries. And this is very interesting to me because I do work in public health and I work in community nutrition. And one thing that I am very aware of and would like to make better is the transportation issues that are involved when it comes to getting food assistance, and especially with food pantries. And in addition to that, not just in what we call normal world, but during pandemic times. I do know that lack of transportation, especially in rural countries, can make it harder to access these resources. And even in COVID times, where there is not as much access to public transportation, especially in rural states, and when food pantries have been having to do car side loading to where they can't provide it to you in person. They have to like load it into your car. And so I am very interested to see how the lack of transportation or only accessible to public transportation really affects the accessibility to participants for client preferred food pantries in the state of Arkansas. I would love to hear your opinions. Let me know what you think. I had a great time reading these articles. They were definitely made me think about a lot. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.